And I go in, I call for his name and his boots are at the back door. But I walked to the kitchen and there's a note on the table. That was hard to see that. He wasn't upstairs. And so I started to go downstairs and kind of got down to those steps to the basement. I stopped myself, which I'm glad that I did.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Bunny Hugs and Mental Health, a free safe space for people to share and learn from others' experiences with mental health and addictions. I'm Todd Rennebaum, suicide attempt survivor and a recovering substance abuser. This episode is with Jill Robson. She is from the city of Saskatoon in Saskatchewan in Canada, and she wants to tell her story about her husband and her relationship. He was an alcoholic. He unfortunately ended up taking his own life, but not before they had a baby. We'll get into all of that and what she wants people to know about it and why she's talking about it openly now. But first, I want to remind people to please rate and review the podcast. If you're a regular listener, you know how important that is. And if you're a regular listener and you haven't done it yet, what are you waiting for? I also want to tell all you folks about a second episode a week that I am doing with my friend Taz. He's a stand-up comedian. He's amazing. He's funny. He's got tons of life experience with mental health, addictions, and everything. We're calling those episodes Todd and Tazzy Tuesdays, and you can check those out just right here. If you're following or subscribed right now, great. If you're not, please hit subscribe. But those episodes will pop into your, I don't know, whatever it's called, your podcast saving spot. And those episodes are going to be about 20 minutes long, and they're going to evolve as we go along. But in the meantime, please check them out. But anyway, here's this week's episode. So without further ado, I give you Jill Robson.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
We're so done with New Year, New You. This year, it's more you on Bumble. More of you shamelessly sending playlists, especially that one filled with show tunes. More of you finding Geminis because you know you always like them. More of you dating with intention because you know what you want. And you know what? We love that for you. Someone else will too. Be more you this year and find them on Bumble.
When Jeff was alive, it was, hard to openly talk about, especially addiction. It's such a hard subject for people to talk about and want to talk about. I applaud what you're doing because, I've thought about doing the podcast thing and I'm like, oh, what could I do? Just chat to myself and talk about Jeff's story and all that and what it looks like on my side of things. I'm not an addict. I'm not someone who deals with that, but I deal with anxiety. Jeff and I kind of connected in that way with anxiety, but total opposite of our mental health journeys.
So how did you meet Jeff?
Funny. We actually worked at the same company. My dad was his boss, but we never worked in the same department. So we worked for Saskatoon Co-op. And so I always I knew who Jeff was, but we were both on, different paths at the time. I started to work at the co-op in the deli department. So we were in the same store, but we never really talked, saw each other, any of that. I just knew the name because he was an employee of my dad's. He was in the meat department. So he's a butcher.
Oh, I see. Okay. And you were in the deli.
And I was in the deli.
Is there any crossover
working
there?
With meat? No, not really.
Okay.
The meat that I work with is cooked. The meat he's working with is raw. So knew who he was, but didn't know who he was. Never even really saw him until this one time he walked by me. I was, working in the department and I was just drawn to him immediately. His demeanor, he was very, head down, hood up. walking by and I'm like, I just knew in my head, I'm like, that guy is going to be in my life somehow. I don't know when or what, but I'm like, he's going to be in my life. You know, years went by, we didn't really talk. And then we started to talk and started dating. And when we started dating, he had told me that he was an alcoholic. So he was dealing with this for quite a while. And I just openly gave him a hug and embraced that he told me that. And he wanted to better himself, fix the problem. And so I was very supportive in that way with him.
How old were you guys?
It was in 2013. So I'm 35 now.
Okay. So it would have been like 20, 24.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And he's about the same age?
He's 4.5 years older than me.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So he just turned 40 this year, actually.
Gotcha.
Or he would have been 40 this year. Yeah. So then little did I know how, like, I was so naive with that information that he told me.
Well, for a lot of people, that's a red flag and they'd have been out of there right there. So it's pretty amazing that you hugged him, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Like, I just wanted to help him. I wanted to show him that life can be good. And, you know, like, what's going on here? Like, what can I do to help you? But I was so naive about it. In my head, because I don't even drink alcohol. I didn't realize how you just can't stop. And Jeff was at that point in his life with his relationship with alcohol where, like, I can't just stop cold turkey. I will have seizures. I will have terrible withdrawal symptoms. So that was quite a big eye-opener for me. It was a big eye-opener for me. The first couple, we're getting closer and we go to his cabin. And, you know, he pours himself a drink and it's 90% alcohol and the rest is whatever mix. Gatorade or mix. And it was like, okay, that's a lot. But he's still acting like a normal human being. So that was a big eye opener for me, for sure.
What did your dad think?
He knew about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my dad knew about he knew that he was an alcoholic and he kind of, you know, he was in a tough spot with work and Jeff had gone to him, and this was even before I knew anything about Jeff or anything. Jeff went to my dad and said, like, I have a problem and I need to go get some help. And I think he did go to Detox and do those things even before I was in the picture. So my dad knew, but my dad also saw Jeff as not just a coworker, as one of his friends. And Jeff really looked up to my dad as a father figure as well. Jeff lost his dad when he was about 19, 20. So yeah, my dad really was that role model for him after his dad passed, because he was working for my dad at that time too.
Was it a tragic way his dad passed?
Yeah, he had a heart attack.
I see.
It was sudden, but his dad also dealt with problems with alcohol as well. I'm sure he had depression too and all that. So yeah, it was a pretty big hit for Jeff.
So now he's also grieving now too, on top of the other symptoms, I guess.
Yeah, and I think, he would tell me that he wasn't always obviously like that with his relationship with alcohol. He started to develop anxiety, and it just took this one time where he was so anxious before going to work that he decided to have a drink, and then it started spiraling and getting out of control. And that was before I was even in the picture. But then when I was in the picture, he had obviously, you know, as they put it, got back on the wagon?
Actually, no. It's when you fall off the wagon.
Off the wagon, when you fall off the wagon.
This is a Seinfeld conversation, actually. In one of the episodes, they discuss this.
I'm a major Seinfeld fan.
Yeah, we are too.
Okay, good. Yeah. So yeah, he had obviously fallen off the wagon when he was starting to get to know me and, you know, us starting to connect, but he wanted to help himself. He wanted to fix himself. He wanted to better himself. And that is something that I always admired about Jeff, was that he was always wanting to try to better himself. And so I took his hand and we went along on that journey together.
Well, it's pretty incredible that he even told you that he was an alcoholic.
He was so nervous about that.
Oh, I bet. But also a lot of guys don't even, I mean, I know alcoholics that don't even know they're alcoholics. So at least he was self-aware enough. And then like, oh, okay, this,
Absolutely.
I'm catching feelings here. I better warn her.
Yeah.
And you were accepting. So that, that's pretty incredible. Both of you.
Yeah. And I mean, then the craziness started happening.
Do tell.
Yeah. Do tell. Yeah. I remember like the first time like with me, he was wanting to, stop drinking, and he's prone to having seizures. So he told me there might be this point where we might have to go to the hospital. But at this point, he wanted to just do it at home. And he had a little bit of booze there to kind of slowly wean himself. Like, I have no idea how this works. I'm so new to all of it. I'm just that, I will do anything to help you move forward. Yeah. And then the first day he's starting to get sick and he's, got the tremors happening and he can barely walk. And we go and get him some Ativan to help him, calm down. And then he kind of he got, out of that withdrawal stage, and he took some time off work for that too. But then he'd be good for a week. And then I would kind of start to get to know him when he wasn't drinking. And then there was that big difference of when he was. So I would always catch on very quickly too. I'm like, his attitude seems different. His demeanor is different. Everything is seeming different. And that's where I started to really catch on. Every single time he would, slip, I would call him out on it too.
How would he change?
His attitude. He was never
would he get grumpier, or would he get happier, or
kind of happier, just silly, kind of say silly things. Then too, he would, maybe have that, fuck it mentality, fuck it, but nothing. He was never anything towards me. He didn't get angry with me, nothing scary in that sense with me. It was always on himself.
I know that well.
For sure.
Yeah. I like to party. I was the happy, funny party guy. In my head, I was my worst enemy. Yeah.
And that's Jeff too. And I always saw so much good with him that I was, I would tell him these things. I'm like, you're so talented with art, music, your humor, you're all these good things without alcohol. With or without, you're still all these really great things, but you're better without it. He just didn't believe it. Just didn't believe it in himself.
It's a compulsion, that goddamn addiction. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there was, that was the point where it was kind of up and down for him. There was times where he would start to, okay, I'm going to do this again. But then there were times, and we'd have to bring him to the hospital because he, he would have a seizure. We would go there because he thought that he was going to have one. And then it's that antsiness in I like to say the addict kind of coming out of it. But it's you're fighting with the devil and the angel. And you're like, I'm in a good place here. I'm starting to get the help, but I need to feed this. The addiction wants me to leave and give up. He would get a prescription for Ativan. We'd go and get it. And the one time we were in Shoppers Drug Mart and he ended up having a seizure in there, and that freaked me out.
What did his seizures look like? Like full grand mal seizures?
Yeah, foaming at the mouth and stiff and like that.
That's from withdrawal?
Yeah.
Holy shit. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
Scary.
Yeah, and I don't know how open to be with the substance part of it. But and I mean, I guess you can cut and edit whatever you want out of it. But when I first was with him, he was drinking a 2.6 of vodka a day plus beer and all that on top of it. It was a lot. Mm-hmm. And yeah, for your body to just try and stop that, of course you're going to be pulled in two different directions. You want to not feel sick, but you also know what makes you not feel sick at this time, makes the anxiety stop, makes the thoughts better.
God damn. Yeah. Yeah, that physical addiction that's something people don't talk about very often. They talk about the mental addiction to alcohol or whatever, but when your body is actually not functioning properly without it, then that just fucks with your mind even more. So you're trying to quit, but you're having seizures. Like, yeah, of course you're going to be even more tempted to have some drinks to.
For sure. Like, how do you stop that cycle by yourself? And, like waking up and, you feel sick because you need the alcohol to make you feel better at that point. It's just like, I don't wish that upon anybody.
Did he ever talk about how he got to that point?
Yeah, like it was basically just anxiety with him. And he decided to, have a couple shots before going into work one day and kind of took the edge off. And that's kind of where that spiral started happening. He always knew, he said he had that interesting relationship with alcohol where, he was the party guy. He was the party house. He could drink a lot and still be seeming normal. Like he's not drinking all that much. So I think he just all of a sudden just was like, holy shit, I have a different relationship with it now.
As a teenager, he was the fun party guy. As an adult, he had anxiety. So he tried the shots just to see how it went. And that flipped the switch in him. That was like, oh, this is actually like a medicine to me now.
Exactly. Yeah. Where it's like, hey, that day was kind of okay. Hey, this day is kind of okay. And then you're like, well, shit, I'll go have a shot on my break. I'll have it and then you just get into this awful downward spiral with it. I am thankful that he realized that this is not right. Like what I'm doing is not good.
It's not healthy. It's not good.
It's not healthy. No. Yeah. So like the seizure part, he got taken back to the hospital because we called 911 and I'm freaking out in Shoppers Drug Mart. And
I'm surprised they gave you Ativan because that's highly addictive.
Yes. So that too, like he started to take Ativan even when he had a different relationship with alcohol when me and him were together. That's fast forwarding. But he was always prescribed that Ativan for, to help with his anxiety and to bring that panic and down right away. But again, there's the addictive side to that too. Then he got, brought back to the hospital and to that frickin' guy, like he just would do things like I would leave because, I'd go home to sleep. He would leave the hospital and you can't make somebody stay. But I've also been down the path with him where he has had to stay, where I had to, stand up in front of a judge and say, this person is ruining his life. He's going to hurt somebody, not meaning to. Yeah, I think you need to strip his, rights away. And then there was, that's where the Bois Center came in and...
that's a mental health psychiatric word for those of you that don't know. So then was he like, the courts made him go to the Bois Center?
Yeah, basically. And I know of course there's so much other details and other stories and all that kind of stuff that led us to that point. But he was just kind of in this manic kind of phase too, where he was wanting help, but not wanting help. And he was doing these irrational things, like he would leave the hospital and his mom was out of the country, on a trip, and he would go to her house and take her booze and take her vehicle and, just do these irrational things. And you're like, Jeff, just stop here. Just stop. Let's just go back to the hospital. It's going to be fine. You need to just keep going here if this is what you want to do.
I too left the hospital at one time.
Yeah.
I left Detox and...
Him too. But it's not a fun place.
No, Detox was terrible.
You see some awful shit in those places. You really do. And I mean, I can't even say that because I have been through it, but just hearing, what Jeff has to say and just even being in the hospital, it's awful. Where do you go from here? There's no clear path on steps to take to better yourself.
Yeah. People still ask me, how do I navigate the system? And I still don't know. I've been doing this for 8 years. I'm like, I don't know.
I don't know.
My doctor didn't know, and he worked in the system. And he's like, I don't know what to do with you, buddy.
you got to go to Detox. Then if you want to go to a treatment center. And so that's like, fast forwarding, Jeff eventually started to realize like, I can't live like this. I need to change something. And at that point too, he did have an attempt at that time.
I was going to ask, when did the suicidal thoughts and ideation start?
And with that too, he was very open with me about it. And we would talk for hours and hours and hours and hours. And he had those suicidal thoughts when he was under 18 years old, like he said he just always felt like this world wasn't for him. So he did have an attempt in that period of time where and that too, I don't know how open to be about stuff like with this topic.
So open as you want to be.
He took pills, and then he realized right away that he, regretted that, called 911 and brought him to the hospital. So that too was the kind of the beginning there with our relationship, where he realized like, okay, I need to do something here. And so that attempt led him into the hospital. Then it was back in the Bois Center. He hated it there, but then it was like just for, a few days here just to figure out like what the plan is. Then he went to a treatment center in Moose Jaw that he really loved. He was there for a month.
Waccamaw?
Yes. Yeah. He really liked it there.
Yeah. I hear lots of good things about their detox and their treatment center. Yeah.
Leaving that, he slipped again. And then it was, actually before the Moose Jaw one, he went to one here in Saskatoon called Maxi, I think it's called. Yeah. He didn't like that. Not a good time. He also was in the Calder Center. And he said it like at those points in his recovery that when he got out, he knew that he was going to drink. So of course there's like, the telling me like, yeah, I'm good. I'm doing good. I'm this and that. But he always knew that he was going to drink like the second he got out of there. And then of course I would catch on and I would call him out on it. But yeah, then he went to Moose Jaw, and he really liked that place. And then from there, he was sober for 2 months there. And then he kind of had this thing a plan in his head where I'm just going to drink like a normal person. So only after work. And it can only be beer. It can only be pre-mixed stuff. It can't be hard stuff. And he was able to control that for a good 7 years. He kind of would slip a little bit, and I would be like, I think you need to kind of settle down here. And he would pull himself back and kind of have this control over it for a bit.
He wasn't going to like AA meetings or anything or? Oh
yeah. So he was going to AA after he would get out of treatment. He was going to AA, but then he didn't. He stopped going to AA because he's like, well, I'm still drinking. He felt like he was not being truthful and honest going there.
Was he seeing any other kind of counseling or treatment of any kind?
That too. He would see, that was closer to like the points of him coming out of treatment centers. He would see a counselor for a bit, but then he always stopped doing that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. Which now it's like, I wish he would have kept on doing it.
Yeah. It's constant maintenance everybody's different, but a lot of maintenance.
So he'd always give up in those ways. He would give up.
Give up or just think he was better.
Like, yeah, he had it under control. So like, I don't really need it.
Right.
I don't need to go talk. I don't need to go to AA. I'm happy. I'm moving forward. I can control what I'm doing. Did that scare the shit out of me? Yeah, it really did a lot. I've seen, a lot of shit that he put himself through there for those first couple of years of us being together. But in that kind of 7-year time frame, we had a lot of good memories. We got married, we just lived, and he was able to control it and whatnot. Then I found out I was pregnant with Jayla.
I like when people say they fell pregnant. They fell pregnant. Yeah. I don't know if
that's right on it.
I don't know if that's a British thing or what it is, but it's like, and then I fell pregnant. It's like, what? Weird way to say
it. Did I say that?
No, you didn't, but.
Okay, I was like, I got all British on you. Yeah, like I fell pregnant. Okay, interesting.
I got up and I was still pregnant. Anyway, never mind.
And so he was, like over the moon on that.
So it was a planned pregnancy.
Yes and no. Like it was kind of like whatever happens, happens.
Right. Okay.
If it's a yes, cool. If it's a no, cool. Like maybe we'll do whatever, there was no pressure on it. But about when I was around the 8-month mark, I could see that he was starting to dip into old habits of drinking hard alcohol and going down that route again. So I kind of started to get a little bit scared there. Jayla was born in July of 2021. And that's I was pregnant through COVID. And there was that whole thing with the lockdown and can only go to, and I mean, we were an essential place that we were working at. So we had to work, but then it's like you work, you come home and you're stuck in your house. So,
and I mean, lots of people either relapsed or started becoming alcoholics and drug addicts and whatever during COVID because of.
Well, you're bored and you're in your home and then you're in your room and then you're kind of isolated and you're. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, Jayla's born, things are okay, but like as you bring up the COVID thing, he was starting to, really isolate himself in his room and, he snored like a motherfucker. So we slept in separate rooms because he snored so loud where he would like rumble the bed and I'm like, I can't do this.
Oh Lord.
When we both love our sleep. So it was like, take a hike, bud. Come and watch Seinfeld and then go sleep in your own bed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Help me fall pregnant and then leave.
Yes. And then leave, please. While watching Seinfeld. Yeah. When Jayla was born, he kind of still had that like isolation type. He would, stick to his room and he was a smoker too. So he liked to smoke in his room and,
Ew.
Yeah. Yeah. Not a good habit there.
I mean, smoking's one thing, but in the house, it's just.
I know.
Too much.
I know.
Anyway,
I know.
Not judging.
Awful.
I'm just.
No. All good. I hated it. So there was those, like, I could still see that he just, and he wasn't like present with us and he was kind of, backing away a little bit. And then there was me finding out that he was, drinking more than what I thought he was. I'm not saying that he like wasn't ever present. He was with us. I think he was a good dad. He was as good as he could be with what he was going through. But yeah, there was definitely that, you could see that, instead of him like sitting out in the living room with us, he would maybe go be in his room for a bit. And then I would like, you want to come out with us? Or can you, I need to take a shower. Can you, watch her for a bit? So there was that kind of things that I kind of noticed. I had found out that he was drinking a little bit more than what I thought he was. So he took a week off work to get back on track here. I have a plan. He always had a plan. And there was no like fighting or, that sort of thing. It was just maybe more so disappointed. And he knew that it would disappoint me when he would not be what he should be doing, I guess, if that kind of makes sense. Mm-hmm. So I go to this day where we have another attempt that happened. He's figuring out he's like, I got a plan here. I'm just going to lay low for a bit. So I was on maternity leave still at the time and he, was doing his thing. I was annoyed with what was going on, but I decided to take Jayla to my parents' house just to, hang out and just get out of the house for a bit. When I had left, there was no animosity or anything like that. It was just, I know what you're doing. You're trying to feel better and all that. I'm going to go take Jayla to my parents' house. I go there for a couple hours and I was going to stay for supper, but it's like, no, I should get home. And at this point too, it's like, I'm not telling anybody, any of the times where he isn't really doing well. So there's that me hiding as well. I'm kind of hiding for him. And so I decided like, no, I'm not going to stay for supper, get back home, check on, see what Jeff's up to, whatever. I get home and, his shoes aren't there. And I'm like, oh, great. What is he up to? And so I put Jayla in her high chair and I just assumed that he kind of left the house. And well, in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, he probably went to the corner store to go get, more booze or whatever. So I'm feeding Jayla. She's in her high chair. And I'm like, I'm just going to go check to see if his car is still here. So I go outside. We had a detached garage. It was in the back of the house. And I opened the door, and he drove an 84 Cadillac. He loved old cars, these old beaters. I opened up the garage door, and the car was running, and fumes fly out, and I'm like, what the fuck? Open up the garage door, and he's, lying on the floor of the garage. I go to him, and he's semi coherent, conscious. And that's where things started getting difficult with me, because I was being pulled in two different directions with Jeff and then our daughter. And it was like, I have to go to Jayla.
Introducing the timely children's book, Sometimes Daddy Cries. The visually stunning book is told through the eyes of a boy whose father suffers from depression. He sees his dad get sad, rest, and even go to the hospital, all while comparing his father's depression to a physical ailment. Sometimes Daddy Cries is getting rave reviews from parents and mental health professionals alike. One critic has stated, "This is a timely and important book that will help countless fathers and sons broach the subject of depression." An Amazon customer commented, "An excellent book to open up a conversation with a young child about depression in a parent." Sometimes Daddy Cries is available in hardcover and paperback on Amazon.ca and Amazon.com.
Imagine what's possible when learning doesn't get in the way of life. At Capella University, our game-changing FlexPath learning format lets you set your own deadlines so you can learn at a time and pace that works for you. It's an education you can tailor to your schedule. That means you don't have to put your life on hold to pursue your professional goals. Instead, enjoy learning your way and earn your degree without missing a beat. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
So I called 911, told them what happened. And they told me to, get out of the house, go out on the front, because you don't know how much carbon monoxide is in the air and all that. And I waited with Jayla in the front yard for the ambulance and police and fire to come.
What time of year was this?
This was in September of 2022.
Okay.
Or end of August, going into September of 2022. Jayla was just over 1. Ambulance came, they took him away. He was alive and everything. He didn't have to go in a carbon monoxide chamber or anything like that. But if I decided to stay for supper, or if, I was 10 more minutes or 5 more minutes, he probably would have been gone at that point. And so he was in the hospital, and then he was put in the Bois Center. Then it was, okay, what are we going to do to move forward here? This is a very big deal.
Yeah, you must have been flip-flopping between feeling hopeless and also okay, we caught him in the middle of it, so there's still hope that he can get shit together.
Yeah.
But also feeling hopeless.
Yeah, very hopeless. So now it was like, Jeff, I think you need some really big help here. We need to figure out what's going on inside your head. What can we do to not be here? Mm-hmm. And treatment and help in Saskatchewan is it's really nothing. There's nothing really.
Yeah. And if there is something, it's a year wait or.
Yeah, it's not a now thing. So that's where, his mom, myself, my family, his sister flew down from Winnipeg, and we were all like, I think you need to take a big opportunity here and find a treatment center that is going to have to be paid for.
So it was like an intervention you guys had?
Pretty much, not so much as everyone sitting in the room and, on the TV show, but I went to go see him in the Bois Center, and, we talked through that, and we had our conversation. Him and his sister had that conversation, him and his mom.
I see.
My family was quite disappointed with everything, but they were still, supportive.
I mean,
but it's a hard thing.
Yeah. I mean, I know the perspective of Jeff's side, and I can't, it's super difficult. It's hard as hell for me anyway. I was also extremely sympathetic and empathetic to my family because it's so hard. I almost felt like they had the harder position in a way. Yeah, I was going through stuff and I had to figure out why I'm going through this and how to make it better. But at least I had that control a little bit in a way, even though you don't realize it at the time. But to be completely no control and helpless and just watching someone go through it.
Yeah, and you're just, that they're so much better than what they think that they are. And you're trying to show them.
I know for me too, it was because I felt sympathy and empathy for my family, it almost compounded my depression and anxiety and reasons to not be around. I'm a fucking burden. As much as I want to get help, how many times have I tried and how many times have I tried stopping, and I'm so sick of it too. And
putting my family through this shit.
Yeah. I'll do them a favor.
And that's basically what Jeff had said, that he was in such a dark place that when I left to go to my parents' house, and I call it the devil is just inside him, telling him all these shitty things. He was like, I was drinking and I had all these thoughts of you guys all talking shit about, you just make things up in your head that aren't true. He just was like, I just said, fuck it. And that's why I went to the garage, and it happened so fast. Swallowed all the Ativan and I turned the car on, and then all of a sudden what the fuck just happened?
Well, drinking too, as you know, when you drink, your inhibitions drop, your morale, morale drops, your morals drop, all of it drops,
everything, and
you become more impulsive, and
and you're just like, fuck it, I'm gonna screw this. So he went to Top of the World Ranch in BC, and he loved it there.
Well, how long was treatment there?
He stayed for 30 days.
Oh, it's only 30 days?
Well, you can stay longer, but then it's more money.
Another $30,000.
Literally.
Yeah.
But he called me, and he had this just this lovely tone to his voice. The Jeff Jeff is back. And there he learned a lot there, where when he came home, it was like, I am not drinking. And so that was different for me as well. Cause it was okay, from my perspective, my trust is gone. There's a lot of things that I don't believe what he's saying. I believe him in everything else with life, except for his relationship with alcohol.
Which sounds harsh, but I mean, when you've been told that how many times and it's never come true, you obviously, you have every right to be suspicious or...
You have the guard up.
Oh, I know. My wife went through the same thing, and it would piss me off because I'm like...
And you don't want to ask things for your wife, or my perspective is you don't want to ask things and,
sound accusational.
Show disrespect. That where it's but I needed that, it's you need that reassurance.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to just jump to accusations and, be disrespectful and in that way. But
God, it's so hard.
It's this big but. It is hard. Yeah. But it's I trust you with every single other thing with life except that. And it's just, it's a hard thing to go through on both ends.
Because you have every right to need that reassurance, but I also get his side because it's happened to me too. Well, fuck you. I'm actually doing it this time, and now you're accusing me?
Yep.
Eat shit.
Yep.
May as well just get drunk then. Then you talk to your sponsor or go to a meeting or something, and they're like, yeah, dumbass, of course she's accusational. I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense.
I've been lying about this thing for so long that, of course,
chill out.
Just
prove her wrong.
Reassure her that you're not. Yeah, prove her wrong.
Yeah.
So, then when he when he came back, he, we were going to counseling and he was going to counseling. He was going to AA, and then the AA kind of, trickled off a little bit. He only liked going to certain ones. And I get like, that must be hard to find certain meetings that you like going to, you don't like going. That's not my world.
Well, in Indian Head, where I used to live, there was no options really.
Yeah,
I mean, there was.
So it's like, you're going here.
Yeah. I mean, I could travel to other small towns or whatever.
And that's just it. Like, we lived in Martinsville, so it was like, oh, do I go into the city and try this one? Or like, do I?
Right.
I like the Martinsville one, and it's only once a week though. And, so I think he definitely should have been doing that more than what he was. Then it's like, you're in treatment or all these things. It's when you get out into the real world where it's not like it is in treatment, where you can talk about it all the time, or you go to like these meetings every day, or you talk about it every day, or you're putting in the work, because that's what you got to do there. When you leave those places, continuing to find the help, it's different. And then you throw your life back on top of it, where hell yeah, that's hard.
I was terrified. I was terrified to go home after 28 days.
Yeah, of course. And
that was everybody for the most part. It was, you couldn't wait to get out of there, but you're also terrified.
Yeah. And he would say that too. So that was in all of September that he was at Top of the World Ranch. And then he got home about, beginning of October there. He went through his first Christmas sober, and then like going into the New Year sober. Then at about the beginning of February of 2023, he fell off again. And I asked, are you drinking again? This time was different because he just was like, I can't do this anymore. And then I found out that, he took Jayla to put her in her car and went and bought the booze and was drinking while she was in his care. And that's where the mama bear in me came out and was like, I can't trust you with Jayla. And so that was when I decided to take Jayla and I out of the equation if he was not going to continue to try and better himself. That's when it was different, because like he went to treatment. He knew all these different things that he could do and how to like communicate with me. And he would have said, I fucked up. I did this, but like, this is what I'm going to do now. Then it would have been like, great, I can support that. But if it's just right back where it was before.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like, I need to take a step back here. It wasn't, to
punish him.
It's not that I didn't want to be with him. It was just like, I can't trust you with, there's this little human now that needs to be taken care of. And I'm not going to put her through this bullshit that I've seen. And I know that she's only 1.5, but like, I'm just not doing that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I have a similar story. It's like, I left Detox, left the hospital. I went home. I was also smoking marijuana. Sorry, I don't mean to make this about me, but I don't talk about this a whole lot on the podcast. I do on other people's podcasts when I'm being interviewed, but I left and I came home and I said, I'll quit drinking, but I need the marijuana. I need the weed. It helps my anxiety and all this bullshit I had told myself. And my wife basically didn't leave. She just said, fine, that's cool. Smoke all the weed you want, but here's your bags. you know? And it was like, guess what? That wasn't enough for me to make me stop.
Yeah.
I went to my parents' house. They're like, well, we'll make up a bed here for you. That's what made me stop. I was like, Jesus Christ, living with my parents again? Oh, God, no. Fuck that.
Yeah.
I'll lose my wife and kids. That I could deal with.
But I will not live with my parents.
So I drove my dad dropped me off at the hospital again, and that was the beginning of my journey. But
your journey.
But again, it wasn't like my wife didn't want to be with me. It was just a decade of like, at this point she was like, okay, I've been supporting you for as long as I possibly can. Now you're affecting me and the kids' mental health, and like we can't We cannot watch you do this to yourself anymore.
Yep.
At some point, I just have to say, I'm sorry. I love you so much. I love you so much. I can't be around you because it's killing us too. So
yeah, exactly. That's exactly, I know it's such a hard thing to do because, and that too, you're being pulled in two different directions. Like, I want to help you, but I have this little thing that needs me as well. So yeah, we went to my parents, and in this whole like little period, like Jeff and I were talking, he's like, you need to do what you got to do. But if you're not going to better and try, and we have to take a step back here. So we were talking, like all these things, and he would say like little things like, would you go on a date with me again? And, just little things like that. And I'm like, of course I would. I don't want to be at my parents' house. I want you to be, trying. And yeah, like, like, no, like, and he was, still like going to work, and it was like, you just need to figure some stuff out again. Then on a Thursday in February, he had said that, I think I'm going to go up to the lake with mom. She thinks I just need to go up there and help clean. And I'm like, okay. And we were kind of like distancing ourselves, but we were still like, talking and all that. Nothing was like, things were not good, but they were
civilized.
Yeah, it was all amicable and civilized and all that. And so then on the Friday of that week, I sent him a text and I said, like, hey, how was your day? I didn't get a response back. And so I was like, oh, okay, he's probably, up at the lake and don't always get good reception up there and yada, yada. So Saturday, I think I might have been off Saturday. I can't remember. But then Sunday, I, went to work and I had an adoption event that day. So I was going to do that after my shift.
Adoption?
An adoption event. So yeah, I work with Saskatoon Dog Rescue. I'm their adoption director.
Gotcha. Okay.
So yeah, there's that. And his mom sends me, I'm still at work, and she sends me a text and says, have you heard from Jeff? And in that moment, I just knew. And so.
His mom said that?
Yeah.
Oh, she wasn't at the lake with him?
Mm-mm.
I see. Okay.
And so I go to the house. At this point, I'm scared because I just know. And I tried to get into the door, but my stupid key was kind of stuck, and it was February and cold out, and I'm like trying to jiggle the key into the lock and it's not going in. It's kind of getting stuck. And so I'm like dinging the doorbell, I'm kind of looking around, but no answer. I go drive to the back, but I'm scared of the garage because of the previous incident. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I go to the RCMP.
So this is your house, not the cabin.
Yes, this is our house in Martinsville. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
So yeah, then I go to the RCMP. I knock on the door there, but it's locked. And so I'm like, okay, I'll call 911 because I need help, and explain the situation. And they know about like Jeff and his history and all that. So they say, go to the house and we'll come and just wait for us. But at that time I was like, well, I don't want them to like boot the door down because I can't get it open. So I'm still, trying with my key. And then I finally do get it. And I go in, I call for his name and all that. Quiet. His boots are at the back door. I walked to the kitchen and there's a note on the table. And so, yeah, that was hard to see that. And then I was kind of just not looking around, but kind of looking around at the same time. He wasn't upstairs. And so I started to go downstairs and I kind of saw the living space downstairs. We had an unfinished basement though, in the, like where the laundry was. And so when I kind of got down to those, like the steps to the basement, I stopped myself, which I'm glad that I did. I went upstairs and I waited for the RCMP, and they came, and then they went downstairs, and that's where they had found him.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, and like I just hugged the RCMP. The RCMP just hugged me, and I just, sobbed in his arms. And then it was just a whirlwind of like, oh my God.
Well, what, how do I live the next minute now? What do we do? What's going on?
Yeah. Like, what do I, yeah. And so, and his mom was coming out too. And so, yeah. And then she came out, and that was hard to see too, because just me just shaking my head at her.
That's all she had to see, and she knew.
Yep. And then it's, you're talking to the RCMP and telling, like, it's crazy that you have to keep going forward with all of these things.
That's the hardest thing.
Like,
even in Jeff's shoes, the hardest thing is like, God damn it, the world's still turning. Like, fuck.
mm-hmm.
Like, it's the next day now already, and I have to go to work or I have to do this. Like, can we not just pause so I can feel like shit for 6 months or whatever it is? And then, and it's just not fair that you went through this.
Hit the play button again.
Yeah. It's not fair that you had to go through this tragic event and like, oh shit, it's supper time. I have to feed the kid now. It's like, it just keeps coming. Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. Like, it does not matter. Yeah. So then there's just this whole other whirlwind of life happening while you're just like stuck still hugging the RCMP. Like, yeah, like you're still in that moment, but all of a sudden you're at the funeral home. All of a sudden you're at the bank, like, doing all these things that you have to do because you're, like, they're gone now. It's just crazy.
Have you, how have you been able to move on? After Jeff is gone, did you start seeing a counselor of your own? And
yes, I have. And that too. So there's not a lot of talk about suicide survivors. And so I'm kind of like awkwardly Googling, like I'm Googling the word suicide. Like, is there any type of like group where you can talk and like, like this is a different kind of grief that you're going through. It's not like,
I've heard that.
And, like a loved one who has had an amazing life. They've left this earth in their 90s. Like, to me, that's not sad. It's like, it's almost expected or normal. Suicide, it's so different.
Category of its own, that grief.
It really is. And it's like, okay, how do I get the support of talking with people that know how I'm feeling, know the kind of grief this is, and that's kind of where I started Googling, where it's like, I have to Google suicide in my phone to like see if there's like maybe a support group, which there is in Saskatoon. So, I found that, but it's also, you don't get guided, or I mean, with my experience anyways, you don't get guided to those things. Like, oh, like you should, really check out this for support. And they do, a 6 to 8 week kind of program with it, and helps with the grief of suicide.
Your counselor never helped you with that?
I didn't even get guided to go see a counselor right away. Like I did it all on my own.
Right.
Where if I wasn't in the right mindset, like I still probably wouldn't have gone to one.
Right.
So it's kind of, there's lack of help in that sense too, of someone who's going through some sort of grief, should maybe get guided in the right direction. This is what you can do to, when you're ready to talk, or
even a pamphlet, like something.
Yeah, just something. And there just was none of that. So I kind of had to find all of that for myself. That's kind of where it's helped me now, just continuing to talk about Jeff, his story, being open with, even just the word suicide, to like say their name. That's a very big thing that I want people to realize. Like, you need to say their person's name. It doesn't mean that they're going to go into this like crunched ball and start leaning back and forth, and maybe some people, but
let me ask you this. What did the obituary say? Do you mind me asking?
And that too. So it has nothing about how he died.
Was that his parents' choice?
I don't. So when we did the obituary, it was very just, we lost Jeff suddenly, and but none of those types of words. But when I posted it to my socials, I kind of more so, I didn't say the words and any of that, but
some people say Jeff lost his battle with depression.
Yeah,
something like
no,
that.
It was nothing like that.
See, yeah,
but I
know,
like it's,
and I've had family members that have gone that way, and same thing with the obituary, and I mean, it sounds like it doesn't make me happy, but when I do read an obituary where it's like, it's right there, it says they lost their battle with addiction or
yes,
with depression or whatever, please, instead of flowers, donate to Canadian Mental Health Association or something. I'm just like, oh, that is so refreshing to see, because
absolutely
it perpetuates it's like you're too ashamed to say what happened, like it's
and
what I mean?
Then it's that weird, like, and at that point too, like, it was just like me, his mom, his sister and brother at the funeral home, doing all these things, and we're all just in this like haze.
Sure, yeah.
And so you don't even think to, like, we just have to get something out.
Yeah, right.
And so it's like, in hindsight, if I would have known to, I probably would today say, how did he die? That's a whole other thing too, where like, okay, this person who has a seemingly normal life on the outside took his life. I start getting, oh my God, people are going to think that I'm this terrible person that he was living with, and it's because of me. And like your mind just goes down all these terrible paths, and
the stigma is so embedded in us. And I mean, things are changing, but obviously it's still there.
For sure. Where it's like, oh, how could this person do something like that when he has the wife, he has the kid, he has the house, he has the dogs, he has basically the white picket fence, and wonder why he did that.
So many people still think of it as like a character flaw, or it's like an actual decision. It's
they selfishly took the easy way out, and it's like, nah. And that's what like breaks me is, in those final moments that he had, that's how dark, sad, alone he was. And yeah, that fucking breaks me right there.
I'm not Jeff, but again, for me, I thought I was doing my wife and kids a favor. I thought it was the opposite of selfish.
Yeah. Like his note was, it wasn't like directed to just me or to just Jayla or to, it was directed to like everybody. And it was, like, I love my life. I love everyone in my life. I just can't do this anymore. This world is not for me. And I just know that I'm at peace, and I hold on to that note, and I have to reread it quite often to reassure me that he's at peace. And I know when I did see him in the funeral home, he did look so peaceful and beautiful, really.
Have you ever regretted being with Jeff?
No.
Even through the darkest times, like even before he passed?
No. No regret there.
No judgment if you ever did, because I'm sure some people do.
No, and I mean, and then people, well, like, you left, and I didn't leave because I didn't want to be with him or I didn't love him. It's just like, there just comes those moments where you just like, I have to take a step back here. You need to figure out what to do here. Like, you need to be the one to want the help and want to try and want to move forward. I can call and do all these things, but if you don't want to do it, then...
Or can't do it.
Yeah, or can't do it. So no, I don't have any regrets. If anything, And I tossed this in my head too. It's like, I wish I would have known him sooner, or he could have, like when we were younger, or, you know.
You could have saved him earlier.
I know. And then that's just it. It's like, that's that, like, that empath and that people pleaser and that helper in me. That's just the way our paths crossed was for, you know, a reason. I have to see it as that way. I can move forward every single day with looking at our daughter. She's literally a little spitting image of him. And so that brings me so much joy. Yeah, in those times when I did not want to move forward and just stay in bed and cry all day, I can't. I have that little girl who I'll keep on moving forward with her.
You have to allow yourself to process your emotions too, though. But
absolutely. No, she's definitely a light in all this darkness.
How do you explain Jeff to Jayla, like where he is and what's going on? And
she was 1.5 when Jeff passed. She has a little bit of struggle with like communication, and so she just doesn't know. But like, I have pictures up. I know the one day she will ask me something, and I'm just going to be open enough, not details or anything, but whatever she needs, I'm there to ensure that her dad is still very much in our lives, even though he's not physically here anymore.
I'm always curious about if I was successful, what am I trying to say? My wife, I'm sure people would like push boundaries in a way. Well, how did he do it? You know, like ask inappropriate questions. Have you come across that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's the people that you met a couple times, and they're just these acquaintances that, you know, of course, like I'm open with it, but it's also like, well, you didn't know him, and like, you know, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But yes, people like to know, people like to assume, say like, oh, like, did he, you know, drink himself to sleep? And, you know, I'm like, you know, no. And sometimes I want to be so vulnerable where it's like, I want to make this big impact. Sometimes I should just post his note to share to the world and like stuff like that. It's like, you want to be this huge voice and be so open with it all, but then you need to like also respect other people maybe going through similar things and similar situations. Instead of somebody asking like flat out, how did he do it? I'd rather, hey, like, let's have a conversation.
What led up to it first? What was Jeff like? Who was Jeff? You know?
Yeah, like Jeff was a funny, open, honest, talented person. He loved music. He loved drawing. He loved making people laugh, like all these things. Like, do you want to know what his voice sounded like? Like, one of my favorite videos of him, like, yeah. And then with people who do know him, it's like, I want them to, talk about him. Tell those funny stories, tell those good memories, tell those bad memories, tell everything. Mm-hmm. I love being open with everything about his story, because that's what I want out of it, is to be so open. Yeah, for the people that I guess don't really know him or know I that well, but they want to know what happened, let's have a good conversation. Let's talk about, maybe, do you suffer with any type of mental health? Do you have anxiety? Like, I have anxiety. And sometimes all it takes is just one person to see you being vulnerable and talking and sharing and showing, to talk or to be vulnerable or to go get help.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, it shouldn't be this big secret.
Thank you so much, Jill. It's amazing that you reached out and wanted to talk about all of this. I can't imagine it's easy to talk about. But sometimes the things that are worth doing are hard to do. So that's amazing. And thank you again. Hey, you should check out my website. It is www.bunnyhugspodcast.com. It's got a whole bunch of links and things and stuff about me and my speaking and merch and other stuff I'm forgetting. And again, please rate and review. I've got some incredibly amazing reviews in the last little while here. There's one really long one that's just, it took me forever to read because it was just so emotional. I had to stop and take breaks. I guess I should share that one sometime. Please keep listening. I've got some incredible episodes coming up still. Always. I'll always have incredible episodes. And I mean that. Maybe not every episode is perfect for you, but they're perfect for somebody And you never know, that episode might be perfect for you in the future, so why not listen to it now? If that makes any sense. Anyway, until the next episode, please remember to make your beds and take your meds. Bye.